Hello and welcome. It's Alexa Linton here, your host for the Whole Horse Podcast. We're here to look at all the ways that the horse industry is changing before our very eyes in very cool, very amazing ways. And we're chatting with the people at the forefront of that change, the professionals, the trainers, the body workers, the researchers that are helping our lives with horses become better and better. Thanks for being here. I love that you're here and listening and learning. And if you ever have a guest that you want to suggest or a topic that you want to hear, just let me know, and I'd love to hear from you. Hello and welcome back to the Whole Horse Podcast. And I'm saying that to myself as well today. It's been a little bit, I've been on a bit of a hiatus here, which I'll chat about shortly here, but I'm really grateful to have an amazing guest on today. Felicity, thank you for being here.
You're so welcome. Thank you for inviting me. And I know it's been like a long time kind of organizing and everything, but I'm really excited to be here and chat today because I think what we're going to talk about is going to be really important.
Yeah, I have that feeling as well. And I feel like it's actually the perfect moment and to give you all a little perspective about, where I'm at and what we were chatting about before the podcast. I just moved into a new space and it's been really big. It's been really emotional, really big. My horses are now away from home, which, even just saying that brings up emotion for me. So they're 15 minutes away, which is for any of you who've had horses in your backyard and just can literally look out a window at your horses. It's a big change. It's a big
for sure
shift. They give me, I've realized how much they give me a settling sense, a sense of home. And how strange it was to split up the family. I mean, I literally, on the day I moved the girls, I also moved my cat Parker to a farm just 5 minutes down the road here. Which was actually weirdly more emotional than moving the horses. I think more because it felt like, a little bit of a rehoming. I've moved urban. I'm literally in town now on in a house on a little lot. And he's a farm guy, and so that was big. And so what Felicity and I were chatting about is, I think a lot of us have been feeling a lot of emotions and a lot of intensity, but also a sense of, what do we call it? That a bit of a blah feeling, a bit of
it's just like, I think you go through those phases where a lot changes or you go through periods, but because you're keeping up with that momentum and then you just end up hitting this wall and it's like, why do I feel this way? Even though so much has changed, but you're just like, oh, why am I here?
Totally. Yeah. And we wanted to share that because we thought, well, if we're feeling this and if we're feeling a little bit tapped out in the creativity and inspiration department and the motivation department, then probably some of you out there are feeling similar. And we wanted to just speak to that. And it was beautiful when I came on because I was really open with Felicity about this is where I'm at today. And she had pulled 3 of her amazing new Oracle cards, which I didn't even know about when when we set this all up, and they're so beautiful. And of course, they just totally hit the nail on the head. So I'd love for you, Felicity, I guess, first of all, maybe introduce yourself here, because there's going to be a lot of listeners that don't know your work, that don't know what you're up to. And then I am a big fan of Oracle cards. I don't think I've ever outwardly expressed that here on the podcast, but definitely love cards. And I was like, as soon as you showed them, I was like, how do I get those cards? So I might be ordering your cards, as soon as they're ready.
I love that. That'd be amazing. They should be ready soon. But so basically I'm Felicity and I'm from South Australia. And I help horse riders help their horses feel more comfortable in any environment. And through that process, I really like to empower riders with I guess the skills that they need to feel competent around their horses and help them in a compassionate way, and also understand themselves along that journey as well. So I really want people to feel confident in their own ability and just have a safe space to, I guess, navigate all of these mindset things that pop up along the way. Because like Alexa said, through this phase over the past few weeks, it's very much been a turn inward, feeling a bit blah, right? And we've been feeling a little bit that way. And I've noticed my clients, most of them feeling a similar way too. So I don't know if there's some sort of energetic thing going on or what, but it's just cool to be able to normalize those periods where you're not amazing and creative. Oh no, you're still amazing. I'm going to pull myself up on that, but you're just not in that like creative, buzzing kind of like amazing space, but you're in that transition phase where like everyone has their winters, right? Like that's a space to turn inwards, but how often do we allow ourselves to actually do that?
Oh, it's so true. Like I can feel that part of myself that's already like, okay, like you need to be doing more sessions. You need to be like creating and figuring this out. You know, it's like, it's that something nipping at your heels, right?
Yeah.
Tell us about these oracle cards. You know, this is another side of you that I'm just learning about, and I'm into it. So yeah, how did this come about?
Cool. Basically, I just had an idea. I was just sharing with my friend Shadia. I've got an amazing friend in Barcelona that we've only met online through a manifestation course. Anyway, so I was talking with her and I was just like, oh, these same themes keep popping up in client sessions, whether we're talking about horses or mindset. And I do some like neuro-linguistic programming and EFT and things like that with my clients as well. And yeah, the similar lessons kept popping up. And I was like, that'd be cool to kind of create an oracle deck. I was sort of beginning to get into oracle cards, and I just had this idea, and I was like, oh, I found this artist on Instagram that I really like the vibe of. She didn't even do any animal art. It was all like sort of esoteric, spiritual kind of art. And then I was like, I just get in these phases where I throw myself in the deep end. I'm like, this is a cool idea. And then I just contacted the artist, spent a few $1,000s getting the art converted. Wow. So I basically got photos of my horses. And then I pitched it to my audience and said, hey guys, like if you want your horse included in the deck, would you be interested? Like share a photo with me. You can help me like pay for the artwork so that I can get this going. And then so about a third of the deck is probably my horses, a third is client horses. And it's really cool because I've had a personal connection with, no, it's probably more than a third, probably like nearly 2/3 of the deck is clients' horses. And I've had a personal connection with all of the horses pretty much in the deck. And like when I was writing the messages for each card, like you can just tune into what lessons that horse directly has taught their human. And yeah, so anyway, that's my oracle card. So they're at the printers at the moment. They're hopefully being sent in a few weeks. So I hope they look okay when I receive all of them because I'm a bit scared, but I'm sure it'll be amazing. But that's my oracle cards.
Ooh, I have a big question for you. What did you choose to name your oracle deck?
The Equestrian Oracle. Yeah.
Simple, but wonderful.
Yeah. Hey. I thought it would I feel like there are a lot of people there are people that are opening themselves up to their intuition around horses, like myself included. Like I haven't been into sort of spiritual things or oracle cards for like, this is pretty new to me. I just jump on things pretty quickly. But I feel like there are a lot of people that are very intrigued and they have this sort of side of themselves that they're very curious and intuitive. And I felt like a name like that would help people that are kind of like curious be open to kind of diving in, because I really feel like, yeah, it's something that anyone can relate to.
Wonderful. And for those out there listening in that aren't really sure what an oracle deck is all about, can you share a little bit more about maybe the value or what it can offer up? Yeah. So basically, oracle cards, in my definition, so I'm not sure if there are other definitions out there, this is just how I've kind of described it, is they're a deck of cards and every card has a message or a theme on it, paired with
artwork that encompasses that message. Okay. So in my case, they're images of horses or horses and people. And that horse has embodied that particular lesson. Okay. So there's an energy with each card that really symbolizes that lesson. And alongside the cards, it also comes with like a booklet full of messages that relate to that theme. Okay. So the messages are channeled directly from that horse and that theme. And they're basically to give you guidance through whatever's coming up for you. So before we started this call, I pulled 3 cards. And I was going to actually look at them at the end of our chat, because I did a podcast episode on my podcast with Josh Nickel the other day, and I pulled 3 cards, and I didn't really tell him about it until the end. And then the order of the cards flowed exactly with our conversation. I was like, this is trippy. So yeah, the card that I pulled for Alexa and our podcast is surrender, show off, and you did your best. Okay. So if you were to pull cards yourself, you'd pull a card based on whatever's coming up for you, whatever you want guidance on, and then you would read the message to go alongside it, and then take what resonates with you. Is that a good description? Or?
I love it. Yeah. And I mean, I've been using Oracle cards. I have a few faves. I do really love the Way of the Horse deck by Linda Kohanoff and artist Kim McElroy. I have a fairy deck I'm a big fan of. I do really enjoy, I've actually done, I work with a mentor, my friend Carmen Spagnola, and she does a workshop every year. And it was initially a business intuition workshop or a business planning workshop. And I loved it because we would basically go in and she would put like 15 Oracle decks in the middle of the space and just spread them all out. And then you would go through every month of the year and you would pick like a January card, a February card, a March. It was so good. It is so good. She still does it a little bit more online now and a little bit more, less business, more life. But I found it so beautiful because you would get these signals and resonances of, okay, you know, January is for say like going inward, like we talked about, and surrendering, and, you know, February is about like a nurturing of creativity, or, you know, and it was this incredible way of opening up a new viewpoint on the year. And I'm saying this, I should probably go and do this for the year. It's a really great way to kind of prep yourself for this upcoming 12 months and just like what the theme is. And it often gives you these, you know, it's like that with Oracle cards where they give you these amazing little hints and maybe things that you just didn't quite think about, right? Yeah. It's just so neat that way where, just that little extra something that draws you or gives you that inspiration you need, or that affirmation that you need to move forward. So that was one of my favorite ways of using them. But
I love that.
Yeah. So when you started with these cards, like, did you have a vision for equestrians, like what kind of things they could pull cards around, or was it just sort of all the things, or was there specific?
I think because there are different, like the Oracle cards that I've got, some of them have different, what is it called where you've got the different patterns of cards, different spreads.
Yes, spreads.
So with mine, I feel like it's more of I feel like the messages that I have channeled in some way to create these cards, I really want people to use them really intuitively. So I've kind of just outlined, and I'm going to have a little video course that goes alongside it just so I can explain this as well in video. I really want people to use their intuition to pull from this deck. So if there's a certain spread, if you go, I love Alexa's idea that she got about pulling one per month, amazing, do it. But I want you to kind of just draw on your own intuition. So if you just feel like pulling one card, pull one card. If you feel like pulling from the middle of the deck, pull from the middle of the deck. Like the other day I was around my horse, and one of my clients and friends, Amy, she can communicate with animals and things like that. And anyway, I'm going through this thing at the moment with my horse where he has some soundness issues, and I had suspected that his joints weren't good. He's only 11, but I suspected his joints weren't good. And I got the vet to come out the other day, sort of been kind of putting it off. And she x-rayed his knee and was basically like, his joint's really bad. It's like, he shouldn't, like, it's not really fair to ride him and do things like that. And I hadn't really worked with him, like riding wise, that much over the past year while I've been building my business and helping people. And I've been beating myself up over that. But then as she's giving me this news, like, obviously I got a bit emotional from that, because then you kind of realize there's all this change going on, and oh my God, like, is he in pain, all this stuff. And then my friend Amy said, oh, like, if you want to open up to communicating around him, why don't you just like pull some cards in his space or just do something like that? Because I feel like I get a lot of, I don't know whether they're just insights that I just have or whether they're coming through them or whatever. I feel like I get a lot already. And it was creepy in a way.
Tell us.
The 3 cards I pulled were, what was the first one? Oh, the first one was you did your best.
Yep.
Which was just like, okay, needed to hear it. The second one, which was look in the mirror, which is like noticing the reflections. And like we were talking about, I've over the past few weeks felt this real lull, and I've been beating myself up, and I've been like, why can't I keep going? Why can't I keep moving? Whilst at the same time, I'm looking at my horse trotting and cantering lame with my other horses trying to keep up. And I'm like, I'm judging him for still keeping on going and not resting when he's clearly sore. And I'm doing the same thing. Like, I'm trying to keep going and maintain this speed and keep up with everything. And I need to give myself permission to slow down, and I don't have to be like doing all the things right now. So that was that. And then the third card was we are a team. And 2 of the cards, he's on the pictures. I was just like, okay, I needed that. Like, thank you. But yeah. Sort of going back to your question, just use the cards intuitively based on whatever questions you have, and just go by feel. If you want to pull 50 cards, actually there's not 50 cards, but 35 cards, do that.
That's awesome.
Does that help?
I do love it. It is one of the things that I've done. I've done a couple things. One is when I pull for myself, I'll typically I'll often pull 3 cards.
Yeah.
And sometime, I don't know why 3, but I love 3, the number 3. It feels very balanced. And sometimes I'll have the intention of pulling a past, present, future. And sometimes it's just 3.
Yeah.
But then the other thing I love doing is just pulling a card for all of my beasties. So I just,
that's cool.
This is a Raven card. This is a Diva card. This is, Riley Solo, everybody, cool. Parker, new kitten, Makwa. I haven't pulled a card for her yet.
Really just do it for anything. Like, just have the deck there, shuffle it, get quiet, think of something and use your intuition. Because the reason why I said that is because I feel like as equestrians, we often look to others for guidance, and we want to do things a set way. And it's just like, okay, in this new phase, it's all about connecting back to you and what do you feel, and giving yourself permission to, like you said, pull one for each animal or whatever you want to do.
I love that. Okay. Can I ask a favor? Just because we're here, can you pull a card for Diva and Raven?
Yeah, let's do it. Let me shuffle first. So I put your other cards back in. So who was the first? Was it Diva or Raven?
Diva. Let's do Diva first.
Yeah. Old Soul.
Oh, look at the picture.
You want to hear what I've written for that one?
I would love to hear. Yes.
Okay, let me pull it up. And let me pull another one, so then I've got everything organized.
And just so you know, everybody, the beautiful picture on the card is a horse lying down and a woman sitting beside the horse. It looks like fall leaves.
Yes. Okay, so let me get organized.
I've just put Felicity majorly on the spot here.
Okay. All right, here we go. An old soul represents a being that has experienced living through many lifetimes and carries infinite wisdom. They have a deep understanding of others and offer a safe, homely feeling when you are around them. It is like they care so deeply about you and shower you with kindness regardless of your past mistakes. You may have experienced being around horses that carry this trait. Their presence alone is so comforting, and when you teach them something new, it's like they already know the answer. It feels as though they are guiding you on your journey and affirming your every step. This card is calling you to channel your version of an old soul and view the world with kindness and compassion. It is time for you to drop any judgmental or cynical thoughts you have and instead focus on being grateful for what you do have and encourage others on their journey. Someone physically or energetically close to you right now may need this energy from you. Tap into this space so that you can gently hold them through this phase. How did that vibe with you?
Totally made me cry.
Yeah.
Really touching.
Do you feel like she's got that energy as well?
Oh yeah. Right from the beginning.
She's probably holding that for you.
Always. Yeah. We've been together now 18 and a half. Oh yeah. It's just right now. Oh, so interesting, because I met Diva, like literally it would be right now 18 years ago.
Yeah. Wow.
And it was a day, the story is that I was leasing this horse at a barn and we like did not get along. It was this little mare named Tigger. And then Diva had just moved to the barn with her person who was actually, Diva was for sale. And so the mare that I was supposed to be riding had a full clip and it was pouring rain, like it is right now, stormy. And I really wanted to ride. And Brigitte said, you need to ride Diva. And she was like a furry bear, she gets this, like the thickest coat in the winter. And she was only 4 at the time. And so, I rode her that very rainy day.
Yeah.
And that was that. And literally, I hadn't ever had a horse before. And she like haunted me in the best possible way until I was like, okay, I got to make this happen. So I
love it.
Yeah. So that was us 18 years ago, like pretty much to the day. Yeah.
Do you find in your, like often I'll find, and I don't know if this is just because I noticed like on Facebook memories, around similar times every year or every few years, same big changes or shifts happen. Do you find that with you?
Yeah. It's so interesting when you drop back in and you're like, what happened right now? Like I hadn't thought of that, but it's interesting when you start to think of the significance of this moment in time, and this timing is quite a thing. And just how she came into my life and like the timing of that experience and what that brought into my world. I mean, obviously this podcast would not be in existence, probably more than likely, if that moment had not occurred at that time. My life would be extremely different. So I look back on that and old soul, absolutely. Like she's a powerhouse. And now at 22, like that elder energy is really arriving. Even I think she's always kind of carried some of that, but even more so right now. Which that's is cool. Really neat. And I know that this transition recently, I think that's a part of the calling for me is, it's sort of like, there's a calling to a bit more maturity in my world, like in terms of how I show up for others and how I connect. So I'm like, I really like how that card lands. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, so I pulled another one for
Miss Raven.
So we've got We Are a Team, which is the other one that I pulled the other day. So that's like the image is, it's an image of me and my horse, but a girl patting a horse on the forehead, so resting a palm on the horse's forehead, and there's like a lake kind of thing going on in the background. And the message that goes with that is, have you ever noticed that every relationship in your life, be it with other humans, animals, or the universe, forms a team cultivated just for you? Inside of every interaction is a divine co-creation. You are always receiving what you need, and they are always receiving what they need without you even being consciously aware of it. It is pure magic. Your team is formed based on your subconscious beliefs and vision. Whatever you believe to be true on the inside and whatever vision you hold for yourself will be reflected back to you through your team. For example, there have been times in the past where everything just flowed, your manifestations were magnetized towards you, and relationships felt so easy. At these points in your life, your team was in complete alignment with your vision and beliefs. You were feeling good on the inside and knew exactly what you wanted, and your team gathered to help you to make it a reality. However, the same is true for the times in the past where things have felt hard and you stumbled across roadblocks or rock bottoms. In these moments, your team was also in complete alignment with your vision and beliefs. You may have been in a negative headspace and had foggy vision, so your team was reflecting that back to you to help you wake up and move forwards. This card is calling you to realize how supported you have been in the past and present by your team. It's time to solidify your beliefs and set your vision so that your team can help you bring it to life.
Yeah, I love that. And I think that the teamwork thing is such a big one on so many levels right now. Like it's with her for sure, because she's been sort of this hyper independent, funnily enough, being, which is for those of you who don't know me, it's like highly reflective what exists in the world. And we've just been slowly finding this connection space. And not in the typical ways. Like I haven't ridden Raven in probably 3 months, or we've just been hanging out and enjoying each other's company in different ways, and there's a sense in me of that's good, that's actually okay for us right now. And and it actually is building the foundations for where we might go in the future. So
do you feel like as well sometimes it can be easy, especially when you're creating and you're doing different things and you're embarking on different projects, that sometimes it can feel like you're driving the ship and you're helping all these other people around you, but then when you sink back into reflecting on something like this and realizing actually I am so supported, like this conversation that we're having, and like the horses that I have, and all of these things, when you actually zoom out, you do realize, hold on a minute, I've got everything I need right now that's helping me either move towards some space where I need to wake up, or pivot me in the direction that I want to flow in and bring me to whatever I'm looking for. We're always being supported and guided.
Oh yeah. I mean, even seeing how this house piece happened, it was not what we were looking for. We were looking for acreage. I had this intuition way back. I think it was, if it wasn't the beginning of 2021, it was previous to that, where I had this sense that a place was coming, and the intuition said, it will be a place through a friend of a friend. It'll be like a word of mouth thing, and it'll be someone who desires to have their land stewarded in a good way, and that they don't want to just sell to anyone. They want this legacy to be continued. And and it's funny how things show up in different packages, right? I think that's the same with horses, where you get what do you say, get the horse that you need, not the one you want. It's this house felt similarly, and that exact thing happened. Friend of a friend introduced us to this place. They were selling privately because they'd created this incredible rewilded permaculture little stamp of habitat here in Duncan that they wanted stewarded in a good way. And I also had this sense too of there would be good neighbors. I'll have good neighbors in this space. Of course I thought, oh, it'll be someone I know, or, it'll be acreage, was like, but when we got here, realizing like the neighborhood, we're on a little cul-de-sac, and everybody's so incredible and supportive and looks out for everyone else. And I have a girlfriend that literally lives 5 houses away from here. Right. So it was all these things where I didn't think it was going to be this way, but it just shifted. And then I feel like I'm taking up a lot of space, but there was this other piece that I totally forgot to tell you about, is that my back injury resurfaced, and it was here for over 2 months this time. My disc injury between L5 and S1. And for any of you who deal with chronic pain, I don't have to tell you how awful it is. And it landed right in the middle of moving, and, moving from a farm where I'd been for 9 years, moving my horses, moving my cat, moving, like all the things.
It's a lot.
And I think all of us horse people have, I don't know a single one of us that's the super greatest at asking for help. We have an independence that exists in us that, that's very general. I think, it's not not all of us, but many of us are like, okay, I can lift that box and do this thing and, make that happen and load this hay. And I couldn't, like, I could literally lift a 10-pound box if it was on a table.
Yeah.
Right. Couldn't reach it from the floor. Very humbling. But also, when you speak of team, you really don't get to see how supported you are until something like that happens.
And don't you think it's interesting as well? Because I'm the same way in regards to like, oh, I'll do it myself. Like, it's fine. I can manage all of these things. I get so much joy out of helping other people.
Oh yeah.
So it's like, I'm robbing some people like in my life of that joy because I'm trying to do everything myself and not being the best version of me if I'm in those moments where I'm feeling a bit overwhelmed and not asking for help. Because then I'm feeling a bit, then I hang around with them and then I'm not as juicy as I could be.
Yeah.
Whereas if I had just asked for help, then they might like it. And it's interesting.
It is very interesting. And I think that hyper independence can sometimes be, it's a coping mechanism. I think it comes from this sense of, number one, it's vulnerable to ask for help. It's challenging. I think there's a part of us sometimes that feels like a weakness when we do that. And then we have to lean on people. And there's a chance that they could say no, or not show up, or disappoint us in some way. There's a lot there, but it's really cool to see what does happen, right, in those moments, and how people show up. I really love that card. And thank you for pulling those.
You're welcome.
Well, I was just telling Felicity that the new barn that the girls are at, I'm creating a track system, little paddock paradise happening out there, which is pretty exciting. I'm really liking it.
So I know that a lot of the people that I work with, they keep their horses elsewhere.
Yeah.
They adjust their horses somewhere else. And I think a lot of people assume that most people have their horses with them and feel kind of bad if the setup's not exactly as you would want it to be, or that you can't see them as often potentially, or that they are, I don't know, in certain environments that you can't necessarily perfect. I know that you're in a very unique situation in regards to like, you can create it as you want it in regards to this track system and things like that. But how have you found that shift from having them with you to, sorry, I feel like I'm interviewing you now.
You're such a good interviewer. It's been really good, actually. Initially, I remember the first night that I moved them, and I literally was wide awake all night thinking about all the things that they could get into and the fence that they could put their leg through, or, just all the things, the nightmares that we have as horse people. Yeah. I do think though, I went with self-board, and I know that's not an option for everyone, I did it in large part because I'm a control freak, and I can openly admit that.
Me too.
And realize that it just like the whole full board thing was just not going to work for my unique baggage and nervous system. So, but I know it's a big issue for a lot of people, like, that, there isn't a lot that you can do, but it makes me wonder, like, I love your cards for this, right? It's like, sometimes there's like creative solutions that we're not seeing right in front of our face, that we can actually shift certain things about that environment that actually create something that we're needing. And I love, coming back to that part where you were saying, everything is as it needs to be. Okay.
Yeah.
What are the gifts and the learning and the parts of this that are teachable experiences, right?
Yeah.
Because I think that it can easily happen in a barn where we're like, this is so terrible. And we kind of miss where those spaces are where we can actually create something better for horses. We're just not necessarily seeing it because the blinders are on. That's where I go with it. Yeah.
Definitely. It's almost just like you did with your move. You're like, okay, this isn't exactly what I was anticipating, but I can see all of the beautiful ways that this is working for me. And same goes with the horses being away from you. Maybe it's just a good chance for you to learn some new things about yourself and learn some new things about the horses and get all these different areas and realize how often the way we think things should look maybe not be the right thing for you. That's just the only way that your brain kind of knows how to put this piece together. And then it's like, no, there are all these other options here. Okay, cool.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
And I think it's really, we've said it a lot on this podcast, but listening to your horse. And I mean that, I don't know about you, Felicity, but I have these, like, I'll wake up in the morning and have just like a brilliant idea about the barn, or like something that a small thing that I can shift that's going to be helpful for the girls or create more flow, or right. And sometimes that's in the watching. Like, if you actually spend time at the barn and just watch what's happening, then you can see, okay, like if I shift this little thing, it's actually going to make a big difference, on these levels. But it does take quite an open mind, right? Like, I noticed that today, I want to come back to confidence, because I know that's a big thing for you. And what I noticed today was Raven's been pushing Diva off her hay, and I've been asking her to come. There's another shelter down the way. And I realized today, I was trying to walk at Liberty out to this other shelter, and she was like, no, don't feel like it. No, turn back. That I'd put all these obstacles out, and they were like completely kind of blocking the energetic flow to this other shelter. And she was like, I'm not going through there. There's too much clutter and stuff. And, like, it just doesn't feel good and safe. Right.
Yeah.
So her confidence was down, whereupon she just like didn't want to actually like go into this other shelter and do those things. And I'd also put up, a part of the track, so it had changed the flow into the shelter. Right. So even just things like that, where I was like, what's changing the confidence? Like when a horse gets spooky or weird or changes their behavior, and I'd love for you to speak to this too. Like, usually there's something, even if it's not something we see immediately, there's something there that's kind of causing a shift, right?
Definitely. And I think it's very easy, and it's interesting. I was just speaking with the client about this issue with herself, but it's directly applicable to horses as well. And it's whenever you have resistance around something, or your horse has resistance around something, there's a reason for that. Like, there's a reason why that's showing up, whether you understand it or not, it's there. Okay. So it's important to kind of dig a bit deeper and go, okay, what's going on here? And also validate your experience and your horse's experience, because it's very easy to judge yourself or judge your horse or whatever in these moments, because you're just like, why don't you just do that? Or for yourself, why aren't I doing whatever I want to do? Right.
Yeah.
So with the horse situation, I like what you did in going, okay, I've changed some things in this environment, like from a perspective of going, okay, well, clearly it feels better for her to hang around the other horse and be around that hay. Why is that? Why does she not feel comfortable to go in this space? Is it because she wants more attention and she gets that from bossing the other horse around? Is it because like it doesn't feel good to be in that space and she's just generally like uncomfortable to be there? Are there too many things in the way? Like what's going on? And interestingly, I also had a client recently. Her horse is very quite shut down and takes a long time to process and is a little bit sort of on edge but internal. And she was having one day where the horse was just worried about something and she couldn't see anything there. She just thought, this is being silly, like, okay. Anyway, then she just sat with her for a bit longer and then eventually walked over towards the area where her horse was unsure. And there was this like weird log thing on the ground that the horse could obviously feel and see that she couldn't. And it's just like, oh, and then once the horse engaged with that object and was like, oh, okay, I can see what that is. It's not a threat to me. She was fine. So it's like exploring all those things of going, okay, why is this happening? And how can I try and understand it? And if you can't understand it, like talk to someone else about it, get some extra, like it like we were saying before, like look at the different angles that you can see this from, because there's something going on and it's happening for a reason.
I love that. Yeah. I had a recent experience with Raven. I said, well, first of all, this is one thing I wanted to chat about. I saw this meme like just a little while back, and it basically said something along the lines of defaulting to the term woo-woo to describe your work is a trauma response. And I was like, really hit me. It really hit me because I do it all the time. I do it all the time. I'm like, oh yeah, this is really woo-woo, but
and I've caught myself too.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. And I'm working towards embracing my spiritual gifts and that side of things, because I know that I kind of go into this almost like a bit of like an embarrassment, shame response around that work. And I sort of express it very like specifically with certain people. I suss out the room and I'm like, okay, what can I say?
Get ready for this.
The things that I do because they're weird and possibly people are going to feel weird about them. And that's another trauma response judgment on my work. And so, this is my current work right now, is to express my work and my gift in a way that is not self-deprecating. So please call me out if I totally do that. Get it. But yeah.
I felt a similar, like when I saw that, I was like, oh, damn, like, yep, I've certainly done that. And even with my Oracle cards, I had so much resistance around writing the messages. And this is part of the reason why I burnt out a bit, because I got it all done in a month, because I was like, they have to be out for Christmas. And I just got it done. And then the resistance around it was, I'm not spiritual enough to write these.
Interesting.
You know what I mean? Who are people going to think like, or like, seriously, I've only been doing this stuff, like I'm like this big compared to these people that are like doing all of these other things, right? So that was one thing. And then interestingly, I went to, because I did one post about it on my Instagram, and I've just shared it in my stories a few times. So it's, unless you're like properly following me, you wouldn't probably realize that they're a thing. And my dad saw a post, right? And he goes to me, oh, I noticed, what's this Oracle thing you're doing? Like, it just, are you going a bit like cuckoo or something like that? Like, so that was what he said. And I just sort of, in the past, I would have been like, that would have really derailed me and really made me like question everything and what I'm doing. Whereas now I have amazing people around me that believe in it. And so I'm like, no, my belief around this is strong. This is fine. He just doesn't quite get it. Yeah. And then I showed my mum the other day and she was the same thing. She's like, oh yeah, Dad sort of saw that and was wondering like, are you going a bit like wacky or something? And I'm just like, oh, this is so interesting. And I remember my Nana, I get along really well with her, and she years ago was really into like crystals and had very alternative friends, and like grew organic vegetables and did all the things. And I can only imagine what the judgment she had to go through back then, because things have evolved so much now. But I guess going full circle, it's just about going like, it's just dismissing your gifts, isn't it?
Yep. It really is.
It's just going like, oh, that's a bit like, and it's also dismissing the other person and you assuming how they feel about it too.
Absolutely. It's sort of like putting up a bit of a wall even before you begin, right? Just protecting myself just in case there's judgment or criticism or anything negative that comes down the pipe, rather than, okay, like this is me and I'm confident in that. I'm really good at what I do. And it's important work and it's valuable. Like these cards are beautiful and valuable, they're going to be a gift to many people, and and your work as well. And that, that intuition, that part of you that is informing your work with horses and your horsemanship is very valuable, very amazing, very important. And we see that. I mean, you just interviewed Josh Nickel, like, I think he's cut from a similar cloth. I like to think that, sorry, Josh, if I'm saying anything, but I think we're on the same page. Is, he has that spiritual essence to him. And I think he's someone that really sees the value and owns the gift. Right. And it's something that I very much appreciate about him and his work, because what it does, I see, is it gives permission for others to step more into that feel space, which is so critical. It's so amazing and important to be there, and for more people to feel comfortable there, because that's where the good stuff happens in my mind when it comes to horses. Like that's the space where the magic happens. When we can embrace those parts of ourselves. And
I've had so many clients that, like, I'm trying to think about the best angle to go about this, because I've had so many clients that are like at a traditional barn. They want to just enjoy riding their horse, whether they compete or trail ride or whatever. And then they'll say to me things like, oh yeah, I just knew like that my horse was off one day, or I could just feel it, or I could just like all of these things. And I'm like, I love that stuff. I love all of it so much. And I just sort of go, hell yeah, if you felt it, like, that's amazing. Tell me more. Like, that's so cool. And they're almost like, I think it's just cool to give people permission to acknowledge how they're feeling, and like for those thoughts. And if they don't have to make sense per se. Do you know what I mean? It just,
not at all.
It's all still beautiful and still valid, and still, especially when your horses, I think horses are really beautiful for affirming those things as well, because you think something or you have this intuitive feeling, and then you do it with your horse, or you try something new. Or like, I love it when my students say to me, oh, actually you mentioned to do this, but actually I tried this instead. I'm like, yes, thank you. Like you're doing it from an informed place. Now you're just putting your own flair on it. I love it. Go for it. Like, let me know how it goes. And I just think it's cool to have that sort of, get into that space where you have that permission around following that feel. And realizing that most people, especially equestrians, I think, because this is why we're drawn to horses. Like, you're drawn to horses because they give you that sense of like calm, and like guide you and teach you things, whether you're like in this spiritual space or not. You're still getting that essence. And I think there are a lot of people, and I work predominantly with women or people that identify as women at the moment, and all of them, they're probably drawn to me for that reason as well, because I'm talking about this stuff. But all of them, even the ones that I wouldn't assume that would be into it, are into it.
Totally. Oh yeah.
So how many more people out there are into it that we don't even know about? But if we're sort of dulling down how we feel and claiming it as woo-woo, or just being like, oh, I've only been doing this for like a few years, like it's not as good as, it's just like,
yeah,
what, like, no, like the more we kind of shelter ourselves in that or dull our light, how are people meant to find you?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Go girl. Yeah. Love it. Somehow an hour has passed. I'm so happy. I'm not happy to like end our conversation, which is also amazing, but happy to feel very inspired and very lit up right at this moment. So thank you.
Good.
Yeah. I'm loving that. And I had this inspired idea. Can we draw one more card?
Yes.
For everyone out there that's listening.
Okay.
To this particular podcast episode.
Okay.
That's my inspiration right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Okay. This is for all of you. Let's see what it is. What does it say? Oh, she's giggling.
Stay connected.
Stay connected. I love that.
I feel that's very relevant to what we were just talking about.
Really? Yeah.
Okay. As human beings, we crave connection, yet it is often the first thing we let go of when we feel like something isn't working in our life. You might experience something and decide to push others away because you feel like you aren't good enough, feel guilty for letting others down, or you just don't want to burden anyone with what you're going through. This card is calling you to remember that isolating yourself isn't going to be the best thing to help yourself or anyone around you through this time, but instead you must stay connected to your thoughts, feelings, and emotions, and also connected to others around you that you feel safe with. Perhaps you have felt yourself wanting to do this with your horse before. Something happens and you convince yourself that being around them is doing more harm than good, so you begin to detach yourself. The same problems and feelings still arise though, regardless of if you are still around the horse physically or not, because you have decided to disconnect. The relationship only improves with your horse once you choose to reconnect and stay connected so that you can learn from and support each other. So, how can you allow yourself to stay connected, or if you feel isolated or have detached yourself from a situation, reconnect? Journal through it, talk it out, or sit with your horse and open up. You're not alone, and your loved ones, including your horses, want to help you through these moments. It will be okay. And I think to add to that, like, stay connected to your gifts and not like separate them or dull them down. Like stay connected to that truth that you feel. And yeah, what are your thoughts?
Oh, many thoughts on that. Yeah. It's as someone who sort of walked through my life being like, here's my normal self and here is something else entirely, right? I sort of
part of me just goes, what else is hiding if you're like, there are these two parts of you, and like when you embrace that full, like just you as a whole.
And that's been the work. I think that's been the work. I mean, I started my spiritual journey. I mean, I think I started it when I was conceived now when I look back, but officially started my spiritual journey at about age 23. I'm now 41. That began because of horses. That was when I met Diva. And I have spent, the last 18 years essentially reintegrating that aspect of myself into my being in a way that feels, connected. I think this is exactly the word. And so it comes and it comes and it comes. And I think for all those out there, it's similar. It's not a, this happens in a moment. It's literally like a drop by drop by drop experience. Sometimes bigger pieces come in and something more substantial happens that shows you this, you're in the right place, you're on the right path. And then you take that in and you walk forward with that a little bit. And I think, it's challenging sometimes when we do have that wound around, whether it be not enoughness or, wanting to fit in, wanting to belong.
For sure.
It calls us back to this place of wanting to look like everyone else and be like everyone else. But it's not the way it's not the way. And I remember when I first started this work when I was 23 and I started as an equine therapist, and I started my business at 25. And I would literally go out and work for the day. And then at night I would come home and frantically search job listings. And I would frantically go on the university website and see how easy it would be to sign up for, master's programs or do something normal, with my life. That happened for about, it was probably over 10 years. And every time I did it, the phone would ring, like the email would go, and someone would say, hey, can you come out and work on my horse? Or, I need you to do this, or I've got this project that I want to do. It would be something to affirm, no, you're in the right place. Just keep going. Every time I was just ready to step on out of that. And, looking back, like, I don't know if it was guardian angels or what that kind of kept me along the path, but it was quite a thing, because there was a big part of me that just said, no, like, this is crazy. Like, you can't do this. So wow, super interesting to see how the story has come together. And, there's a definite appreciation for whatever those forces were that kept me in this world and on this walk, so that I could be impactful in whatever way needed to happen. So yeah.
And I think even just like looking at, if I guess your past self, like if you were 23 today, do you know what I mean? There's a lot, it's still potentially could be difficult, but there are a lot more avenues to cultivate the people around you that do understand you and do get it and can affirm what you're doing and can back you. Whereas I think the internet is an amazing space. And even for those listening at this point in the podcast, like, hopefully some people are listening and feeling a little bit more like confident to share their gifts or like connect with other people, and just know that there are people out there that are willing to support you on this and understand you, and it's all beautiful, and I think it's all needed. So it's there. I think there are so many people out there that are just like, there are parts of themselves and they're all beautiful, but it's just like they're going through that integration process, and we probably always are throughout life. But it's just interesting to see how that unravels for each person so differently. But it's cool to see how, like you said, you've had these moments of like confirmation along the way that have kept you going, because what you're doing is really important.
Thanks. Yeah, ditto. Yeah, how do people get in touch with you, Felicity? Like, how do they find out more about the work that you're doing?
Sure. So you can find me on Instagram at Felicity Davies with an underscore at the end. I'm on Facebook at Felicity Davies Horsemanship. I have the podcast, which is called Equestrian Perspective, and you can find that on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or wherever you listen. And my website is confidentequestrianprogram.com. So I predominantly work with people through 12 weeks, teaching them everything they need to know about how to help their horses feel more confident in any environment. And I blend horsemanship and mindset sort of together. So, and my Oracle cards hopefully will be available in a few weeks.
Woohoo! We will. I'll post the link when I know more. So so you guys can get them at the wholehorse.ca website when they are ready. And thank you all for tuning in. Thank you, Felicity, for being a guest today.
Thank you so much for having me.
It's been a pleasure.